Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia. That is Andrew Erickson, and today's special guest is the one, the only Jake Seeley from The Athletic, gracing us with his presence. We are all humbled and bowing at the feet of Jake to be here today. Jake, this is the most important start-sit show of our lifetime, as many people are on the precipice of making or not making the playoffs. I know that's a lot of pressure on you, but you once told me pressure is your middle name, or was it Muriel? I can't remember. Either way, one of them is true. It's very exciting to have you here, my friend. How are you?
So first, my middle name is not that far from being that bad. Second of all, that nice fresh friend reference there. And
You're
third
welcome.
of all, for anybody out there, because I've already seen it in the rankings column on the site, is like, this is no different than week 2. Don't overthink it now that the playoffs are next week. Please stop overthinking it. Please, please, please. I beg people every single year, Joe, you do the same thing. I know. Stop overthinking it. It's no different. You set your best lineup, and then you just watch and pray and hope it's the best you can do.
I spent an hour on our Discord chat last night talking people off ledges with Julio Jones. So I can just tell you already, we are in that place where people are like, but what if? And I was like, guys, what's ever gotten you there, whatever the best lineup, let's not overthink it. So we're going to try to take you through all that today. Andrew Erickson, again, we are here now. It is a very important week, though, because a lot of people's playoff hopes and dreams are going to rest on some of these decisions. So how are you handling all this pressure?
I don't feel the pressure. No. I'm good. I'm fired up. I'm excited. It's week 14. You know, this is a special week 14. This is the first week 14 that isn't fantasy football playoffs. We're still in the regular season, so this is uncharted waters that we're entering. So let's get it done.
I gotta say, I hope people are watching this on YouTube today, because I didn't realize having you guys together at the same time, like how wholesome you guys both look. You're both wearing the black hats, and you look like brothers from like one of those
navy blue.
Well, whatever it is, I'm colorblind, but you look like one of those like those brothers from like one of those Hallmark Christmas movies. I feel like where like Andrew's the little brother, and he's like, Jake, why don't you ask that girl out? And Jake's like, no, I'm not ready to move on. And he's like, come on, she likes you. It's Christmas.
I gotta tell you, if I full shaved down clean, I would look as young as Andrew. Just saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're like brothers in that, and I'm probably in that show too. I'm the jerk mayor, probably trying to close down Jake's small business or something.
I still remember the first time I ever met Andrew in New York. It was good times.
That's right.
Rolled out at his own dime to meet all of us and try
That's
to get this in. Hey, for everybody out there, not to hijack your show, but if you want to be in this industry, there are two people that we know, and Andrew is one of them, that has gone from listener to actually doing this for a living. You know the other one, as I forget, G-Man Jay. Jay Felicio, is that how you say his last name?
And I'm going to be doing his show on Friday.
There you go.
But yeah, man, I mean, Andrew hung out with us on his own dime, you're right. So, and now look at us. That was like a couple years ago. And look at us all on a Fantasy Pro show
Now I pay
together.
to get rid of him.
Yeah, can we do that? I don't know. He's making all that Hallmark money, though, so he's okay. He's good on the side. All right, let's kick things off here. And by the way, what I was talking about on stages is Discord, which is at fantasypros.com/chat, which is premium subscribers gain access to dozens of our channels, including AMAs, which are extra there. It's free to join fantasypros.com/chat and free to get on Discord, but you can get onto these stages where you can talk these things out with me, with Dan Harris, with Kyle Yates, with any of us over there. We have all these moments there. Scott Bogman does them with me too, where you can talk about the trades, talk about your start sits, talk about anything you want in terms of fantasy, and we'll help break it down with you there. It's an amazing place. It's a great community of people, too. They ask great questions, and you get a lot of smart players on there, too, to interact with. People are joining leagues on there, so head over and check out our Discord today. And don't forget, as I said, so you can watch the two brothers here on the YouTube channel, subscribe to youtube.com/fantasypros, and make sure you click that little notifications bell when you do. I want to keep pushing that Fantasy Pros YouTube page, because let me tell you, we got amazing content here from our team. All of the podcasts are there. You can watch the podcast. You can watch our live streams every single Sunday we got going on for your start sit help too, as we get closer and closer to game time. Just an incredible group of videos and entertainment at our YouTube channel, but you can't be part of it unless you subscribe, so go over and do that today again as well. And make sure you like this video too, because our good friend Chris basically recharges himself off of all your likes. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, please, because it helps Chris, especially around the holidays. We have to, kind of reboot him every so often because he works so hard. So when you give him a like, it's like It's a Wonderful Life. Every time you give a like, an angel gets his wings, and Chris gets very excited. So please go do that. Now it's time to get to business. All right, enough enough banter. Let's put it all aside. Let's talk about running backs. Let's start. It is week 14 in the NFL. Jake Seeley, we are looking at the top 20 running backs. Who are you fading? Who are you concerned with? I know it's a tenuous group already, but still, you're a discerning fellow. So who are you not in love with in the top 20 this week?
Yeah, you took the one that I really want to talk about, but I'll leave that for you. And I'll piggyback because I have something to add to it in case you don't already cover it as well. But in a similar situation, which might give away a little bit, is Zeke. I'm not benching Zeke most anywhere, but if I happen to fall into running back depth, Alexander Madison, picked him up and I don't have, Dalvin Cook's not coming back, anything like that, you could make a case. He looks slow. You go back to the beginning of the season, it was laughable when people were like, oh, Tony Pollard needs all the touches. And we joked about it at the time. But now the knee and the workload and everything's starting to really take its toll. Pollard clearly has more burst. And if you look at it, the past couple weeks, I keep mentioning this on my show, is Washington's defense was supposed to be top 5 this year. Mm-hmm. It's still not top 5, but the past few weeks it has come back around, which is strange that you lose Chase Young and you start playing better defense. Like, I don't know how that works out, but whatever it might be, you worry about the workload being 50-50, potentially even more going Tony Pollard's way at this point because they keep alluding to potentially resting Zeke even more. I would just have... again, I'm not benching him, but I would hesitate. I would definitely bench him if you had somebody like Madison. There's no question about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, you make a great point there. Landon Collins' injury is the one that concerns me this week with that matchup too, but you're not wrong about Zeke. There's definitely some reason there to be concerned. How about you, Andrew? Who are you concerned with in week 14 of the top 20 RBs?
Yeah, to echo everyone else, definitely concerned about Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, if you look at the football team's rushing defense this year, they've actually allowed the same amount of rushing yards as the Buccaneers. Like, that's how good their run defense has been. It's not talked about nearly enough because they just started off so bad and they were just terrible against the pass. But they've been a really, really good run defense, and so that puts Zeke in a tough spot. For me, James Conner is someone that I'm just really interested to see how his role changes if and when Chase Edmonds comes back. Like, that's what we were kind of told, that he would be coming back sometime in the near future. They're playing on Monday night, so we really don't know. We might not know till Sunday when they activate him, or Saturday off of the injured reserve. But, Edmonds has been so involved in the passing game. Is that going to be just taken away completely from James Conner? Obviously, you're playing Conner because of the touchdown equity. That's what he's been doing all season long. Does that change now that Kyler Murray's back as well? He's going to be, someone that's going to obviously score rushing touchdowns. James Conner didn't scoring rushing touchdowns last week. Kyler Murray scored 2. So that's something to be concerned about in James Conner's range of outcomes. And the matchup isn't great against the Rams.
And Edmonds was running really well before the injury, too. He looked great. Like, he was starting to flash those moments of, wow, I kind of see why they're talking about he is a starting running back in the NFL. And, of course, obviously, there's always the touchdown question with Conner. But it's another one to be concerned with. For me, it's James Robinson. That's the one that Jake was alluding to earlier. He is RB18 in expert consensus rankings right now. The matchup is at Tennessee, so it's on the road. The health is the question for me, number one, because we saw the workload was scaled back for sure last week, even though he did start. So the usage is down. The usage is down. The game script is concerning to me. So there's a lot going on there. I know he's been chirping about how he wants more carries and he thinks he deserves more, but I don't know, man. I'm a little worried about him holding up through that. So, Jake, what was your concern about James Robinson since you wanted to piggyback on there?
Well, and not to come for you, but for everybody that might not know, I don't think chirping, because that sounds like negative connotation to it. He really wasn't chirping. And actually, if you saw the interview, he was very, very respectful about the situation. And
sure.
They loaded the question and they loaded it. I mean, he could have easily come back and been like, yeah, Urban Meyer's an idiot. But he came back.
I think that's the subtext of what's going on.
Yes. But no, he said it. He's like, I did try to come back in the game, and I did want to be spelled. And he's like, they just didn't have the situations or the packages or whatever. He kind of danced around it, saying like he was ready. And Urban Meyer, what I wanted to say is that Urban Meyer said he didn't think it was a good decision to bring him back late in the game, but that was a rotation situation, and he was sending a message, and he was bench. Like, that's why. The one thing you left out is the fact that Urban Meyer is ruining James Robinson.
Well, I think we all knew that already, but it's good as a reminder, that's for sure. All right, let's talk about the guys that are on the fringe of RB2 this week, the guys who are thinking about flexing or maybe even starting at RB2 as well, depending on the depth of league that you're running in right now. So, Jake, when you're looking at these guys who are ranked outside of the top 24, who, in your opinion, is start-worthy this week that you actually feel pretty good about?
Yeah, obviously this is we're recording this on Wednesday, so maybe on Friday people go like, "You idiot, he's not even playing this week." If Melvin Gordon plays, so Melvin Gordon, it sounded like he was close anyway last week, so that's why I'm kind of okay saying this. Maybe a new nickname. Can we call him Giganta Williams instead of Javonte Williams, like Giganta, like?
I'm fine with that. I love Javonte. He's my dude.
After that Gigante wonderful performance of Javonte Williams, I wouldn't be worried about Melvin Gordon not seeing his workload. Maybe it's not 50-50 split straight down the middle. Maybe it's 60-40. Even if it is, I'm okay with it because Melvin Gordon's looked great this year. And, oh, by the way, who are they facing? The Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, who have given up 12 double-digit scores, with some of those coming in the same game of two duos. Actually, three duos have put up 14-plus points against the Lions. So Williams can do his thing, and Melvin Gordon comes back, he'll do his thing as well.
All right, so that's one. Who's another guy that you feel good about starting this week?
Not good, but I mean, it gets ugly as soon as we get. Once you get past RB2, it gets pretty ugly. I like Ameer Abdullah more with Cam Newton because he won't get vultured by Cam Newton, but this would be the week where I could see Hubbard getting in the end zone as well, especially if they're up early facing the Falcons and they can grind the clock out. That's what you're hoping for, that you bleed the clock, you get Hubbard to 15 touches. But I am concerned that's a split, and I'm concerned that Cam Newton's going to vulture the touchdowns, but I think it's okay this week against the Falcons. Again, it gets really ugly really fast at running back this week.
Gets ugly at RB13 and on, I feel like, this week. That's what I'm
really
between the buys. I mean, that's the other thing too. We've got 4 teams on a bye too, so that's going to hurt
and
teams
about
as well.
14 running backs with up in the air situations of health and everything.
That's just a round number we're giving. But going back to the Panthers real quick, what do you anticipate, Jake, with that change in offensive coordinator in terms of the identity of the offense in Week 14? Anything?
No, I don't think it's going to be enough that it will be like, oh my God, look, it's night and day. All of a sudden, passing 70% of the time. You usually don't see, even with new coordinators, things change. Look, how much does the Giants' offense really change with no Jason Garrett? Mm-hmm. It changed a little bit. They tried. Kitchens threw in some wrinkles and some trick plays, but it was still basically the Giants' offense because it still comes down to the personnel you have. There's only so much you can do within 1 week and even a few weeks. So it's more about the fact that I think Ameer Abdullah was already playing in front of Hubbard. That's because he was the pass catcher. And that I do think it's more of a split. I don't think Hubbard's walking right back into his 80% workload like he had early this year. But, maybe they pass a little bit more. But that's the thing. Is like maybe they run a little bit more because that was the entire reason Brady apparently got fired is because, Rule wanted to run it 30 times a game. So maybe they'll both be okay. Maybe it'll be the Titans. They'll lose 30-10, but they'll run the ball 40 times.
It's not out of the realm of possibilities. This is 2021, that's for sure. All right, Andrew, RB3s, flex guys at RB, outside of the top 24, who do you feel good about starting this week?
Just keeps getting uglier and uglier as we trickle down the rankings. So I'll talk. So Tennessee Titans running backs, Deontay Foreman. I think that he's probably the Titans running back that I'd like to target in this particular matchup. You have the Titans as heavy home favorites. It's looking like it'll be a positive game script for a more in-between the tackles type of runner. I know Dontrell Hilliard obviously had the big 68-yard touchdown run the last time we saw the Titans play, but in the second half, it really was more of Foreman getting the football, even though the Titans were behind. They just were like, whatever, we'll just establish the run. We don't really care about winning this game. Let's just feed Deontay Foreman. So he had 19 carries in that game, and he had 12 touches versus Hilliard's 4 touches in the second half. So I think that Foreman I think he sets up better in this particular spot against Jacksonville, who has allowed the 3rd most rushing yards to running backs over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, Foreman in ECR is RB29, and I'm sure he's going to be in a lot of lineups this week. Who's another guy you feel good about starting at RB?
Yeah, so this one I thought about for a little bit. I looked at Mark Ingram because I'm assuming that Alvin Kamara's coming back. I don't think we've got any definitive news about his status, but I think that he's good to go. Regardless, even if he is active, I think the Saints have kind of realized, hey, let's not pound this guy in between the tackles and get him hurt, because that's the reason he ended up getting banged up and missing so much time, because they were using him really out of his role where they were getting him more in space. So I do think Mark Ingram is still going to maintain a role. I mean, who else are the Saints, who are the Saints' offensive playmakers? Tre'Quan Smith? They just lost their best player, Deontay Harris, to suspension. He was the one that was making all the plays on their offense, and now he's not even in the fold anymore. So, and he was a guy that was also sucking up targets near the line of scrimmage. So you could expect, even with Taysom Hill under center, that they're still going to look at targeting the running back position. I know Ty Montgomery was catching a lot of passes out of the backfield, even though he's labeled as a wide receiver. He does play more in the backfield. So I think Mark Ingram, we saw him get 14 touches to Kamara's 17 when they played together last back in week 8. So double-digit touches against the New York Jets defense, which is the bottom worst defense against running backs this season. I think that's warrants a start for Mark Ingram as kind of like a RB3.
All right, Jake, let's go back over to you here with the guys you're not feeling good. I know there's a lot here, but just pick your two favorite that you're least comfortable with in this group of running backs.
Well, two favorite. I get a lot involved because one of my non-favorites is an entire backfield, and that's although you could throw the Seahawks in that entire backfield.
I was gonna say there's more than one of them. I believe.
The Bills. Hey, at least the Texans. I would actually go back real quick. I would actually start David
don't
Johnson
you do this?
week.
Don't you talk about the Texans?
Sidebar.
Stop.
The Bills. Look, I don't want anything to do with the Bills. I said I don't want anything to do with the Bills for weeks. We got rescued for basically Hail Mary play of Matt Breida on Thanksgiving. Thankfully, he got the touchdown and came back in after running the wrong way earlier in the game. But it comes down to if they're in a passing situation, you expect more Breida this week. You expect it, and he didn't really fit the game plan last week. But it's three guys. Zach Moss is active. Maybe it's Zach Moss week. Maybe Devin Singletary gets more run between the. Stop with the Bills because the only person in that backfield that matters, is Josh Allen, and I really want nothing to do with it. And then the other one is, you mentioned Foreman, Andrew. I'm hesitant on Hilliard if and only one thing. Obviously, again, it's Wednesday. If McNichols is active, I'm not so sure that Hilliard just gets all of the 50-50 split passing game work. Like, I would love it if it was just down to the two of them because we attack Hilliard in games that we expect them to be behind, attack Foreman in games you expect them to be up. Even so, both of them are probably still in that RB3 conversation where one of them can finish as an RB2. But if McNichols is back, I don't know what the split. We don't. Nobody knows what the split's going to be between McNichols and Hilliard, and that's why I would just be hesitant about slamming Hilliard into your lineup after we saw what happened before the bye if McNichols is active.
All right, Andrew, let's talk about two guys for you that you are not encouraged by their matchup, their situation going into Week 14.
We're going to start with Tevin Coleman, New York Jets running back. So he's been a pleasantly surprising in the last two games he's played, averaging 16 touches, 74.8 PFF rushing grade.
Surprisingly bursty.
He's totaled eight missed tackles in the last 2 weeks. I was like, man, this guy's looking elusive. But again, a lot of it does have to do with the matchups. He's faced two bottom 8 run defenses the last 2 weeks, and this week he gets the New Orleans Saints, number 2 in PFF's grading, and they rank first fantasy points per game allowed to running backs. So going to fade away from Tevin Coleman. This is not a scenario where you're trying to hope that the talent wins out in the matchup.
No, this is a dangerous one, Andrew, because he was on the waiver wire show. So there's always that impetus that when you get a guy off the waiver wire, he's fresh to your roster and you want to start him. So that's something you would preach against people doing.
I mean, yeah, I just don't think that he's going to really do. I think that if you're looking at him as a flex play, I think that you can probably get more upside from a wide receiver. As we'll talk about some of these wide receivers, I think that, sure, if you want to get 6 to 8 points, that's all you want, okay, then probably Tevin Coleman can probably do that. He could score a touchdown. He's still getting the goal line touches. And, pass interference here or there, the Saints give up a lot of yards through the air. Okay, boom, Coleman scores a touchdown and you're set. But from an efficiency standpoint, it's not going to be anywhere near close to what he's been doing over the last 2 weeks.
All right, and who's the other guy you want to sit this week at running back?
So Adrian Peterson is just, God, man, I can't believe he's back in the rankings. It sucks because I was coming down on him after he got signed by Seattle, and then of course they go out and win a game, and Pete Carroll's attributing it all to the even split of passing and rushing yards. That's how you do it. That's how you win. Adrian Peterson, key to victory, changing it all. It's just, oh God, it's super super annoying to see Pete Carroll talk about that stuff. And the thing with Peterson is the dude is not, it's a run in a crowd of dust. That's what it is every single time. But he did get goal line work, and they are playing the Texans, who have ranked the second most rushing touchdowns allowed to running backs this season. So I want to shy away from Peterson because I don't think that he is going to really rack up a lot of yards. We saw Rashaad Penny actually lead the team in carries and snaps. So we could see Penny actually kind of lead the backfield. But, I'd be lying if I said Peterson scores 2 touchdowns, because he has the one carry for, 1 yard and 1 touchdown, stat line. That wouldn't surprise me. So kind of similar to a Tevin Coleman where Peterson, you're just praying for a touchdown, and usually I don't like to bet on those.
If you're in a situation, What's that?
When you have 4 running backs, how many do you really have?
You have 0 running backs, Jake. There's like when you
Joe
have 3
knows.
quarterbacks, you have 0 or 2 closers in baseball. I have a follow-up question for you, Andrew, because a lot of people I'm sure had Chris Carson, then they went and handcuffed Collins, and now they're just chasing this backfield. If you had Peterson and Penny, who would you start if you only had one spot in your roster and you had to start one?
God. I think
Don't laugh, because you're next, Celia. I'm going to ask you the same thing.
No, it's just
You know that circumstance is out there for somebody this week. One of many of our listeners, more than we
no, it's
probably
not
wanted.
because they're not in the playoffs.
It's fair. But seriously, if you had this, guys, who would you start between the 2 of these guys?
I would start Rashaad Penny because he actually has a semblance of juice to his game. I just can't chase the touchdowns. I feel like that's bad process. Even though it's a bad defense, it could go through
fair.
Russell Wilson in the arm. I think that just my eyes tell me. My eyes told me the truth with Devontae Freeman. That ended up working out with like these dusty old running backs. So I'm gonna trust my eyes. Go with Rashaad Penny.
Jake, what about your eyes?
Same. And just,
Okay.
I mean, it's not even eyes. I mean, we've been doing this Rashaad Penny thing for years. You know how much I used to love Rashaad Penny until 2020, and I just got tired of him. But
Thank
at this
goodness
point,
somebody got tired of him, because I've been
Well, no,
tired
I was
of him
gonna say-
since he got drafted, pretty much.
just take the names off the jerseys and kind of just go back to what you were kind of alluding to there, Andrew. It's just the volume. Just chase the guy that gets the amount of touches and just hope that the touches turn into value. That's really what we're going for here.
All right, let's play a little game powered by our Who Should I Start tool, which is free at fantasypros.com/start. So go and let the start tool help you today set your lineups for this week. Let's start with a fun one here. Kareem Hunt, still waiting on some clarity from him, versus Tony Pollard. Similar styles of running back. Who would you rather start this week if Kareem Hunt is a go? Jake Seeley, Hunt, or Pollard?
Well, if you remember my tweets from week 5 or 6, Tony Pollard.
No, I don't remember your tweets from week 5 or 6
you would
or
know,
yesterday.
You know the
I don't
joke that was
log
going
your
on
tweets.
at the time. Let me finish. You pretend like you don't know. Tony Pollard's in the Hall of Fame. Tony Pollard has a bust that's above Bo Jackson and Barry Sanders and every other.
Don't make
running
fun
back
of my
in the
guy,
business.
Tony Pollard. I love Tony Pollard, man. He's my
So
dude.
So for everybody that out there, Tony Pollard. But actually, the funny thing is, I just looked. Tony Pollard is 25 for me. Kareem Hunt is 26. So I'm going with
there's the
Tony
answer.
Pollard. There you go.
There you go.
As close as you could potentially get.
Wow. After all that bluff and bluster, at the end it turned out to be Pollard.
No,
Anyway,
because that's the whole thing that started it. That's why I thought you saw it too, is because people were coming at it for week. It was week 5 or 6 because it was all the people that like Pollard should lead this backfield. Pollard should be the running. And I was joking about it, and it was the night that Ezekiel got stopped on like the 1. I was like, oh, Tony Pollard would have scored. And then it turned into this whole Chuck Norris thing when I was like, Tony Pollard saved the dinosaurs, just like that kind of stuff. So it was just
Tony Pollard blocks for himself. How about you, Andrew? Tony Pollard or Kareem Hunt? Who are you starting?
Yeah, I got them ranked back to back. Kareem Hunt, I have one spot ahead at 24. Tony Pollard at 24. So it is really close.
Why do you hate Tony Pollard?
Dude, I'm clearly a massive hater of
Here's
Tony
a more
Pollard.
surprising one, guys. 70% of the experts right now are going with Kareem Hunt, which I think is a little surprising, to tell you the truth. I thought it would be Pollard, actually, or closer at least. So much for that. Let's do another one here. Let's talk about Dontrell Hilliard versus Adrian Peterson. I know this one's really exciting. These guys are back-to-back in ECR. Andrew, I know you talked about Peterson probably falling in the end zone possibly, but is that enough for you to start him over Hilliard?
And when in doubt, you got to hedge. So I'm going to say with Hilliard, I prefer him in like a full point PPR because I think that's really where his value is.
The non-answer. Good job.
But in half point and standard, because with Peterson, you're just hoping he scores a touchdown. Like that's all that really matters. So half point, standard, probably go on the Peterson side.
Hey,
All
Andrew,
joking aside, that's the answer I would have given too.
Is your butt okay from straddling the fence over there?
Well, Jake, what's your answer, huh?
It's Dontrell Hilliard, unless Jerry McNichols plays, but it's Dontrell Hilliard. Dontrell, just go for it. Just go for the upside there.
65% of experts agree with Jake, but I agree with Andrew, so don't worry, Andrew. I'm with you. All right, let's move on to the wide receivers here and talk about the guys in the top 30. Andrew, I'll give you the stage first. Who in the top 30 wide receivers are you uncomfortable with? Are you fading in Week 14?
Yeah, so the guy that I have some concerns with is DJ Moore. And I know we talked about with the Carolina running backs, okay, are they going to establish the run with Matt Rule? How much are they going to throw the ball? Maybe not to Patriot-esque levels, but Cam Newton might be like, hey, Bill Belichick, my old coach, only threw the ball 3 times and they won. Like, let's do that. Like, oh my God, like just could not handle that type of offensive game plan. But I think that we look at the Falcons match, be like, oh, like smash spot for DJ Moore, like, oh, like wheels up. And for most parts, it should be like that. But one thing to note is AJ Terrell, the Falcons cornerback, their number one cornerback. He's been really good this year. Like, he's been shutting down anyone on his side of the field. He's PFF's third highest graded cornerback this year. And, I don't know why they don't have him shadow guys, because it would have helped them, like, stop Chris Godwin or Mike Evans last week. But instead, he's, like, on Rashad Perryman.
Well, some corners
most
don't,
of the game.
Yeah, but some corners don't like that. They like to play that one spot, and that's where they're comfortable. Yeah. I mean, Revis was like that early in his career, too.
Yeah, so DJ Moore does line up, though, the most on the side of AJ Terrell. So he's going to get matched up with him a lot. The last time we saw DJ Moore play the Falcons, he was wide receiver 44. So he didn't really have a massive game. Sam Darnold was a quarterback then. Cam Newton is the quarterback now. And I don't think I need to really get into, Cam Newton and his limitations, I would say, throwing the football. So again, it's really hard to ignore how heavily involved DJ Moore is in this offense. But, for 1 week sample size of a brand new offensive coordinator, could his target share decrease? Could Robbie Anderson get more targets? Maybe Terrace Marshall is active. They drafted this kid. Like, why wasn't he playing? So there's a lot of factors and question marks that I think that if you look a little bit more into the matchup itself, individual matchup with DJ Moore, it's like maybe not as such a smash spot. Even I got kind of carried away with, Atlanta, like, here we go. Like, DJ Moore, like, can I get him like top 12? It's like maybe just, pump the brakes a little bit.
All right. Jake, who are you pumping the brakes with at wide receiver this week?
So people are going to hate me because it's my boy.
Well, they already don't like you, so I think it's fine.
I mean, yeah. And there's just more reasons to get him to hate me. So I have him on so many teams, pounded the table for him in drafts because I called him the volume king. I just want the volume. If you give him 150 targets, he only catches half of them. I don't care because he'll finish as a wide receiver too. That's Brandin Cooks. That was my argument for him, and that's what he's doing. However, two things here. Don't know the quarterback situation. I actually think it's better for him if Davis Mills is under center because the volume would be higher, and that's what I want to chase the volume. 8 targets, he might only catch 3, and that's really what it comes down to, Brent. But I need that volume. If he has Tyrod out there and he only has 5 targets, he only catches 1 or 2. And the second part about it is people don't like. This is another perception situation Andrew was just kind of talking about for a different team, though, is people see Seattle and they're just like, oh, their defense sucks. Their secondary is not great. It's middle of the road. So that's first, one, it's better than people think because it's middle of the road and it's not god-awful. Mm-hmm. But the second part is because you just run all over them, and even when they push the pace, you can just run and run and run. Even pass-catching running backs, you can do well against them. So they just don't need to throw to wide receivers much because that works. And then Seattle's secondary is better than you think. You just take away Brandin Cooks, and that's why, again, I go back to David Johnson's an intriguing play because he's going to be doing the work out of the backfield. You get 15 touches. That's the one thing. Every running back that's got 11 touches and involved in the passing game has scored double-digit points against the Seahawks this year.
I love that you teased the David Johnson thing, and then we got it 30 minutes into the show. Well done.
You like
it's
that?
Like Jaws, yeah. I waited, and I heard the music
Would
the
you
whole
expect
time.
nothing less from me?
I expected more, that's for sure, and I'm always let down. All right, let's go to the next one here on my list, which is DeAndre Hopkins, who's wide receiver 12 this week. Everybody's just right back into DeAndre Hopkins. And look, I'm not taking Hopkins out of my lineup if he's in. Let me just clarify that because he's an all-world talent. But Jalen Ramsey gives him problems historically, and Ramsey's having a pretty good season in his own rank. So what is the health really of DeAndre Hopkins? And this is that argument we get to in this point in the season, draft stock versus where we are in reality with a player. And what's going on is he's not healthy. He's playing through an injury all season. He has not been himself all year. And he's got a really tough matchup. Now, that being said, I'm playing him, but this is where you have to look to your flex for those guys who have a little bit more upside, and I think you have to really pay attention there because you cannot fail there at the flex position or at wide receiver 3, for instance, if you're a team that's playing for an important Week 14 and you have Hopkins on your roster. That being said, some of the guys outside in that wide receiver 3 and 4 conversation who you might be looking to start because they have a little bit more upside. Andrew, take me through 2 guys that you feel good about, or maybe even 3 that you are comfortable with starting this week in Week 14.
I'm only going to give you 2 names, but they're both acronyms, so you're going to get the 3 involved that way. So first off, OBJ, I know that he didn't perform up to like standard of like Van Jefferson and Cooper Kupp, but it was interesting because he didn't play like a full snap share in that game. They were blowing out the Jaguars. He didn't really need to play that much. He was really used more like situationally. He played less than 60% of the snaps, but when he was playing, like he was seeing a ton of high value targets. He saw 4 deep targets, 143 air yards. So I don't think that we're ever going to see Beckham see this massive target share again with Kupp in the offense and Van Jefferson, but I don't expect Tyler Higbee to be nearly as involved in a much tougher matchup against the Arizona Cardinals, who've been really good against tight ends this year. So I think Beckham this is a game that should be a shootout. Like Rams-Cardinals. Like, this should be a high-flying game, and this is when you want players like Odell Beckham Jr. on the field. So we've seen him already, not in this particular game last week, but 2 weeks ago we saw him up in the 98% snap share. So, like, he is a full-time player in this offense, and I want parts of this game any way, shape, or form I can get. And he has been the vertical guy, the big play receiver for the Rams. And he did score a touchdown last week as well. So I think Beckham is a high upside play this week.
All right, so you got OBJ. Who's the other one you're thinking about starting?
ASB, Amon-Ra St. Brown is my
All-star break.
for the Detroit Lions. So it's weird with him because we've seen him have like a couple big target games throughout the season. They always kind of followed up with like, oh, he like fell off, like, oh, like it's a trap, kind of like what Russell Gage does to us basically every single year. But the thing that's different about St. Brown is, you know, his big game this past week, 10 of 12, he caught 10 passes on his 12 targets, came with DeAndre Swift not active in the lineup. Like, Swift has been the main target leader in that Lions offense basically all season, even at the running back position. So I don't necessarily think that St. Brown's targets are going to falter in any way as long as Swift remains sidelined. I mean, they're not trying to get Jamal Williams super involved in the passing game. Hawkinson obviously kind of operates as the pseudo number one wide receiver. But, I mean, he has a connection with Jared Goff. Jared Goff went for him on that game-winning touchdown. So I think that they're starting to build a little bit. And I think that when you look at the Denver Broncos, specifically from like a wide receiver cornerback matchup perspective, I think that the best matchup is inside against the slot. So Kyle Fuller is really kind of playing out of position. Like, he has been mostly a perimeter corner throughout most of the year, but then he had to go inside because of the injury to Bryce Callahan. He's PFF's third worst graded cornerback through 13 weeks this season. So I think that St. Brown, his target share has been up 11% over the last 4 weeks. So I think that he's in a pretty good spot here in a PPR league.
All right, so OBJ and ASB. Jake, any three-letter wide receivers you'd like to start this week?
Actually, yeah. I mean, I don't like to start, but we're going deep here for a Hail Mary play. DPJ, the other, the other J, the BJ that or PJ that whatever. He's on the Browns now. Donovan Peoples-Jones.
So confusing at this point for everyone
isn't
listening.
They're just throwing out like letters all over the damn place here. Like, that's
like
just why I think
this is brought to you by the letter P. It's like Sesame Street here. I don't even know what we're doing anymore.
No, it should be the letter J because it's J's in both, and then Jarvis Landry should do well in this game because, I mean, I'm playing corner for the Ravens at this point. They went for two because they had nobody to play. They were going to have to pull people over from special teams. So, like, there were going to be people out of position playing corner because that's why. They had nobody left. So you go against the Ravens with the pass in general. They've been beatable at that point. Funnel-wise, they're they're outside with Humphrey they were doing well. But Landry was already in a nice spot, but now what opens up is that Donovan Peoples-Jones big play here. Now, of course, the reason Kareem Hunt, to go back to your ranking discussion from earlier, the reason people are high because the Browns might just run the ball 50 times a game like they do. But if they do throw a bit and Baker Mayfield isn't rolling out in a wheelchair after what he looked like heading into the bye, maybe he can do something. By the way, real quick because it's Thursday night, the other J, KJ Osborn, if you were hesitant of like, oh, is this just smoke?
That's just two letters, though. Does he qualify? KJ? Is that
no? I could call him KJO.
No.
We could do that.
Don't. Please don't.
But so the deeper one I'll give, and I just threw that name in to go ahead and start him for everybody. The deeper one I'll give is, so the number one wide receiver since the other number one wide receiver we never expected to be a thing in Jamal Agnew, since he's gone down, Laquon freaking Treadwell, because it's 2016, everybody, with Cordero Patterson, Laquon Treadwell, Adrian Peterson, Carlos. Like, this is so stupid. Anyway, point being, Laquon Treadwell has been the number one, and what do we know? How do you beat the Titans? You just throw on them. They legitimately cannot stop the pass. So I'm not happy about starting Laquon Treadwell, but Laquon Treadwell is in the wide receiver 4 conversation for me, and that's in and of itself is insane to think about.
I will make you feel better about it because last week in DFS, we had Matthew Betts on the show from Fantasy Footballers, who is great. And I said, Laquon Treadwell is somebody we need to start looking at because he's a free square on DK. He was like 3,400 or 3,200 last week. I said, if he just gets you 9 PPR points, he's already returned value. Now, a little bit more complicated season long, so it's interesting that now we're getting to that point. And look, Dan Arnold's not there, right? I mean, who else are they throwing the ball to? Certainly not Marvin Jones, certainly not him. So, I mean, you're right. Like, Laquon Treadwell, if you're in a 14-team league right now, there's no reason why he shouldn't be at least on your radar of potential starts. I don't think you're crazy for this, at least not for this. Andrew, who do you want to sit this week at wide receiver?
Marvin Jones. I don't know why. I don't
Nice
know why.
segue.
Like
Well
every
done.
time we get on the show, we look at ECR. He's like he's like 35, 36. I'm like, guys, like put him in my he's at 55 like the last 5 weeks for me. Like I don't get like I know like he'll look good in projections because you're like, all right, well he's on the field like on every single snap. Like he's got to see a certain amount of targets, but they're like the worst targets you could possibly ask for coming from Trevor Lawrence. Like he's just not out there doing really much of anything. I mean, he's really getting his cardio in. Like that's really what Marvin Jones is, a cardio king this year, just getting all those wind sprints. He's just not commanding any targets in this offense. Like I don't care that it's the Titans. Like he had one catch for 25 yards the last time he played the Titans. He hasn't been a top 40 wide receiver since week 6 against the Dolphins when they didn't have any of their starting cornerbacks in the game in London. Like it's ridiculous. Like Marvin Jones, I honestly don't. I would rather just start Treadwell. Like he's the one that's over the last 2 weeks he's been getting the high target share. So that's who you need to get. Like the Jaguars, it just seems like it's just next man up, and they just like skip the top 3 guys on their depth charts. Like nope, we got to get O'Shaughnessy his targets. We got to get Treadwell his targets. Like. You know, basically, if you were good in college, like that's what Urban Meyer's looking at. Like, did you play in the SEC?
Dan Arnold.
Boom. Like,
And honestly, that's the last time he's watched any of these guys play. It was probably when he was still coaching at college. So to be
He
fair,
loves Carlos Hyde.
Yeah,
exactly.
there you go. To
James
be fair.
Robinson went to a small school. He's like, nah, man, you didn't go to Ohio State.
I'm unfamiliar
so-
with your work. If you did not play in the SEC, I really am not sure I'm familiar with you. All right, so Marvin Jones is out for you. Who else at wide receiver are you not starting this week?
I don't like Cole Beasley that much either. And again, I'm looking at some of his numbers, not just looking at, last week's game, which is kind of an outlier, but it was kind of trending down for Beasley anyway. Over the last 4 weeks, he's had an 11% target share, 65% route participation. Like he's not playing on every down anymore. Like they're like limiting his snaps a lot more than they had at the beginning of the season. Every time Gabriel Davis is on the field, he just like makes plays and they just like don't play him. And it's like, wow, like maybe if you had another player that could spark your offense and make plays, you should play him more. And they just refuse to get Gabriel Davis more involved. They have to run out Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders for God knows what reason. And I look at the Buccaneers and get Russell Gage had a good game against them last week. So I think that people might think, oh, like Russell Gage slot receiver, Cole Beasley slot receiver, like here we go, wheels up. But the Buccaneers have actually been really one of the better defenses against slot receivers this year, and allowing the third lowest passer rating, 67.1. So I'm just like, I just don't want to play these like old, decrepit, veteran Bills wide receivers. Like I just don't want to play them. Like they were good at the beginning, as a lot of veterans are, and then they get tired, man. He's got to get his nap.
I could use a nap myself. But you're 100% right. And I'll tell you this, Gabriel Davis, one of my biggest disappointments, I feel like, this year, because I had high hopes for him and I had a fair amount of shares, but I had to drop him early because it just wasn't happening. And it's frustrating that it hasn't come back around. Jake, who is not getting a second look into your lineups this week at wide receiver?
The other old man on the Bills, God, I've been saying that one for weeks, just like Andrew has been with Marvin Jones. Like, why are people still on Emmanuel Sanders? And I'll tie the other name into this, who's not an old man and just got a giant contract, and after Tim Patrick got his. But Courtland Sutton and Emmanuel Sanders, do you know the last time they scored double-digit points was in the same week 6. 6, everybody. Stop with Emmanuel Sanders. Stop with Courtland Sutton. Actually, the last 4 weeks, neither of them have even topped 6 points to throw another 6 at you. And it's even been longer than that for Courtland Sutton, who has a nice fat 0, I think, somewhere in there. Or is that Sanders? I don't remember because it doesn't matter. Neither of them have mattered since week 6. Stop trying to start Courtland Sutton. Stop trying to start Emmanuel Sanders. And for everybody that's saying, like, but look at the matchup. What if this is the week? Even if it is. Like, what are you going to start him next week? You're really going to trust it off one game? For the people that are still holding them on their rosters, I'm saying, like, just drop them and move on. Drop both of them for KJ Osborn. Just move on.
I'll give you a stat that'll help scare people straight. You ready for this? Without Jerry Jeudy this year, Courtland Sutton, 25% target share, 16.9 PPR points per game. With Jerry Jeudy in the lineup, 10% target share, 4.2 PPR points per game. So, yeah, that's considerably worse.
Actually, speaking of which, Joe, to go back to your DeAndre Hopkins thing, not even 19% target share when playing this year.
It's because he's not healthy, because he's not those soft tissue injuries and those, the leg injuries to these wide receivers, that's when you catch one of those early and it lingers throughout an entire season, it's a bad scenario. And it's unfortunately going to be a lost season. It's going to hurt his draft stock, I think, a little bit next year, but not a lot. But it's unfortunate
that
that a
song
lot of people.
Stuck in my head. Thanks a lot.
Which one?
Cranberries lingers.
Oh, it's a great song. Do you have to, Jake?
Do I have to?
Do I have to really? Do I have to really bench Courtland Sutton?
Yes,
All right, let's play a little game. See how much Courtland Sutton really is despised. Who should I start? Courtland Sutton or Jarvis Landry? Half point PPR. Jake Seeley, Sutton or Landry is pretty easy, right?
Yeah, it's a smash Landry, and it's not even close. Again, even if it wasn't for the Humphrey injury, again, you already beat the Ravens with the intermediate type wide receiver. Actually, look at the first matchup: 10, 6, 111 for Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry.
All right, I agree. It's a smash for Landry as well. Andrew Erickson.
Are they back to back?
They're back to back in ECR right now.
Oh my God.
Well,
how about you, Andrew?
No, I'm going to go with Jarvis Landry. Even though I do think so Courtland Sutton, I will defend my guy, as I was big on Courtland Sutton entering the season. Look,
everybody was. You weren't by yourself. Like that, I was like, don't put it on you. Like I'm saying, like I think
let's put it on Andrew. No, I want to put all the blame on Andrew for this moment.
As a sidebar, real quick, if you came out of your draft and you went running back early and maybe even but you came out with like round 4 Sutton, round 5, or let's say round 4 Allen Robinson, round 5 Sutton, round 6 Robbie Anderson, you were like, man, this is great.
Well, Andrew, I'm sure you thought like everybody else. Well, Teddy Bridgewater made wide receivers useful in Carolina. Then he should be able to make more than one wide receiver useful in Denver. But unfortunately, that logic did not carry over.
No, I mean, and also the thing that was different in Carolina too was they didn't have a tight end. So, and the Broncos do have tight ends. Like they use Noah Fant, Albert Owegabunam, however you pronounce his last name. But the thing with Courtland Sutton, I will say, is he did see 6 targets last week, which was like the highest he's had basically in a while. So that was a positive thing that kind of worked in his favor. And the Lions, how do you beat them is with the deep ball. So you saw Teddy Bridgewater did take some shots to Courtland Sutton last week. Even though Sutton's target share has been abysmal with Jerry Jeudy, he still is seeing a lot of the team's air yards. Like he's still seeing all the downfield shots. So if Courtland Sutton were ever going to hit, maybe this is more of a DFS play, but against the Lions, like if you're down on your luck in the early window and you need to late swap to somebody, like Courtland Sutton is your air yards prayer king. Like that's who you want to go to.
Well, that's fair.
This is really, really easy. I'm going to do it. Ready? It's Okue. Say it. Okue.
Okue.
Bunam. Okue Bunam. It's actually really easy if you don't look at his name. Just don't look at his name. Just think
Albert Okue Bunam.
There you go.
This segment was brought to you by the letter O. By the way, Courtland Sutton, 78% of experts prefer him, and I'm sorry. I think that should be inverted. I'm over on the Jarvis Landry side big time on this one. All right, let's do another one here. Russell Gage or KJ Osborn, also 2 guys basically back-to-back here. Andrew Erickson, you go first on this one. Who should I start, Russell Gage or KJ Osborn?
Probably go with Gage. I don't want to, but I just like, I don't know, like the numbers say to go with Gage. Like Osborn, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You know, he's a plug-and-play guy. He's filling in for Adam Thielen, but we see this all the time with these receivers where they come in and now have to go to wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 1, and they just kind of like flop because they're just not as good. Like that happens. Where as Russell Gage, he has been getting the majority of targets in his offense. You know, Kyle Pitts has not really emerged like a lot of us thought that he would, especially in recent weeks. So look, I mean, Gage is getting volume, and really, I think when you're looking in this area of receivers, I can't guarantee that Osborn just doesn't go out, runs a bunch of routes, and just doesn't get targeted, and they use other players. You know, it could be D.D. Westbrook that, gets the more targets or something, Tyler Conklin, so things like that.
Well, Conklin is the one that I keep making the case for. We'll get to him in a bit, but Joe Hayden might not play in this game too, which could be beneficial because then everybody, when your number 2 corner becomes your number 1, and then all of a sudden the same thing's happening on the other side of the field, that's actually beneficial for a guy like KJ Osborn, right? So Pittsburgh's already, down deeper into their depth chart of corners. Is that something where you can make a case for KJ Osborn because of that?
Well, I think it helps him like from an efficiency standpoint, but I don't think that a lot of offenses just be like, oh, well, there's like a backup corner. I mean, some offenses do. Some quarterbacks like literally target, backup cornerbacks when they come in the game, but not every quarterback does that. And really, it could just be, oh, wow, like Justin Jefferson's facing more scrub corners. Like, okay, let's just throw the ball to him like 20 times. Like that could really, it just could be the Justin Jefferson show, which would literally surprise no one.
All right, Jake, Russell Gage or KJ Osborn?
So, yeah, and also it could be, out of the 32 teams, Bill Belichick is not the only one of the 32 that knows to go after the team's best option. He's just very good he's better than everybody else at doing it. But I always laugh when people are like, Belichick takes away the best weapon. Of course, all 32 teams try to take away the best weapon. So I'm saying that, like, you might get triple coverage in Justin Jefferson this game, but that's not my point. My point is I'm actually going for KJ Osborn. And for maybe a slightly different reason than people would expect. I do have him 1 spot in front of Russell Gage. So they're back-to-back. I have a very close call. I like Osborn. But here's the other interesting thing why is because at week 14, Week 3, probably you don't face this as much, but Week 14, there's a lot of, do I go for the boom or bust play? Do I play this person or this person? I don't know whether to play. You play KJ Osborn on Thursday night, you get your result. Now you know the rest of your lineup and say, all right, I was hedging at flex. I didn't know whether to play the safe play or go for the upside. I had a great game. Now I go with the safe play because I already got the money in the bank, so to speak. He goes out and gets you 2 for 40. Now you definitely say, all right, I'm going to play the upside play in my flex. So when it's this close, I'm just saying, when it's this close and I'm really struggling and I have them back-to-back, I'll play the Thursday night guy to kind of give myself a kind of almost a sneak peek at my matchup for Sunday.
All right, that's an interesting assessment out there. For me personally, I'm going to take Gage because I've seen him now take this role on of being the one wide receiver in this offense for a couple weeks now, and it's been working. It's not, world beating, oh my God, but at the same time,
it's been, too. You're not worried about
No,
the
I'm very worried about. I'm incredibly worried about the matchup, but at the end, but I'm also worried about a lot of things, and I can't control them if I'm down to Osborn and him, and that's the whole point. It's like Osborn, you have to go back all the way to week 1 where he had 9 targets and he had a great first game, and after that, it's been really spotty. So now we're thrusting him in this position where it might not be KJ Osborn at all. It could be all the Jefferson in the world having a huge game because of that Joe Hayden injury and because you can run the football with Madison and because Conklin's good in the red zone. That's my fear, whereas Gage, I think no matter what, is integrated into this offense for better or worse. And you're right. Gilmore is not what he was, but he's still very good. No, you're right. All right, let's move on because I know you got very important things, Jake. So we got to keep moving here with the show. Let's go to no, not that. That you don't have. All right, let's go to the quarterbacks here.
Thanks.
For me, there's no QB1 fades this week. Like if you're a QB1, you're playing because we're missing we're missing some guys, but even so, it's just not a good week where you're looking at the quarterbacks. So I don't know, Jake, is there somebody for you that you want to fade?
There's not. The only one I would say that if you picked up Taysom Hill, I might think, and I don't know if I pull the trigger, but I would think long and hard about maybe benching Justin Herbert. Here, there's a couple of reasons why, and this obviously plays into whether or not Keenan Allen plays. This is a big one. We haven't seen, I think, 95% of the people who have tested, they haven't come back the same week, so even with the vaccination. So Keenan Allen would be one of the few who have, but even if Keenan Allen is back, the Giants' secondary is really, really good, and people don't realize that because they see the receptions and yards, but don't realize it's because they keep everything in front of them. They don't give up a lot of big plays, which is why I'm also a little bit hesitant on Mike Williams. Now, you're playing Mike Williams. I just want to say that Mike Williams last week is a spell like, he's getting back to early season Mike Williams. Justin Herbert's been very inconsistent this year. When teams have baited him into throws and kind of, played the specific coverage like the Giants can play, he makes some mistakes. Again, Justin Herbert has top 5 potential every single week. But if I had the decision between him and Taysom Hill, I might roll out Taysom Hill. This Giants defense has also held Jalen Hurts to a miserable game. And yeah, okay, sure, Jalen Hurts, what the hell? How about Patrick Mahomes, 14 points? How about Tom Brady, under 20 points? Again, they're not like stomping everybody, but it's a lot more respectable than people think.
All right, Andrew, how about you when you look at this QB1 grouping here? Is there anybody that concerns you?
The only guy I don't love is probably Kirk Cousins. I know that the Steelers' defense, especially their secondary, is really banged up, but the Kirk Cousins, they have issues on their offensive line with Darisaw. We saw them lose last week to the Lions because they couldn't necessarily pass protect as much as they or as successful as they've done in the past. There's no Adam Thielen. Like that's his number 2 guy. Like that's his touchdown guy. Like he didn't have him last week, so I know he got it done against the Lions, but the Steelers still have an elite pass rush. Like there's a reason why TJ Watt, people are throwing out MVP TJ Watt because the dude is an absolute monster. And if you actually look at PFF.com, we have an offensive defensive line matchup chart, and it's really favoring the Pittsburgh's D line. Like they really could cause some problems for Kirk Cousins if he's under pressure. And if they're, like Jake alluded to, if they're really just trying to press on Justin Jefferson and these other guys are not stepping up, like that could cause some issues for Kirk Cousins.
All right, let's play a little Who Should I Start here. We'll start with the guys on the fringe of QB1. Cam Newton or Joe Burrow? Jake, who would you rather start this week? Joe Burrow with his pinky or Cam Newton with his arsenal of incredible arm strength and prowess throwing the football?
What does this put them, 13 and 14?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Well, so that would mean that this ranking for Cam Newton is wrong because either he finishes 5th or 25th. Like this is a wrong ranking. This is not going to happen. So, but
okay.
I will roll with Cam Newton against the Falcons because the rushing upside, and that's really what it comes down to, is similar to Cam Newton to Taysom Hill. Is Andrew talked about it before with the matchup? It's not as great as people might think, but the one area you run pass catching running backs, but that Cam Newton can get in the end zone. If he just gets 60 yards and a rushing touchdown,
You sound exactly like me 2 weeks ago talking about Cam Newton when I said, well, he's going to score a rushing touchdown and then he's probably going to throw one ugly touchdown, and that's 12 points, somewhere around there is when he rushes. Like,
well, so
he's already up to almost 18. And you know what? It did work out, Jake. So I just want to say, it didn't work out.
It worked out the first time, not the second time.
Did not.
And that's the point. Cam Newton just can't bomb, and he'll be a QB1. He just can't bomb, and I don't think he will. This isn't the matchup for Cam to bomb.
Okay, it was amazing the deja vu I was getting listening to you talk about that. Andrew Erickson, who is your guy in this matchup here between Burrow and Cam Newton?
I think I'd still go with Joe Burrow. I like the matchup against the 49ers. I think their secondary is kind of overrated, and you look at the coverage that they run, a lot of cover 1, a lot of cover 3. That's where Burrow has really been at his best. He's actually PFF's highest graded quarterback against those coverages. And he just has so many weapons. Like, Jamar Chase, if he catches that touchdown, like we're talking, like, is it even a discussion about Burrow? It's like, dude, the guy threw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was amazing. And he also played like with a friggin' broken or sprained pinky, and he was still like out there chucking the football. So I still think Joe Burrow, like from a safety perspective, I think that he's probably still like safer. And I think Jake kind of hit the nail on the head where, Cam Newton's range of outcomes is just so wide where you're just like, hey, like if you need a top 5 performance, like if you're like a massive underdog, you're just like, I'm going for it. Like, yeah, I think that Cam makes sense here. But if you're not like, or if you're like missing Jonathan Taylor this week, you're like, oh man, like I need to make up for those points. Like Cam probably makes sense to kind of gravitate towards. But if you have your starting lineup, you look at your opponent, they're missing a couple guys because we have 4 teams on bye week. Okay, I don't think you need to maybe chase the upside with Cam. You can go with Burrow, who I think is going to probably finish more like where he's ranked, where Cam, it's either 5 or 25.
All right, let's go to Superflex now. Zach Wilson or Matt Ryan. These are 2 guys back-to-back at 21 and 22. Which one would you rather be starting this week here, Andrew?
So I was going to say Zach Wilson, but we got a notification that Elijah Moore is dealing with a quad injury day to day. And day to day usually means actually week to week. So I don't know if Elijah Moore is going to play, because coaches always lie about how optimistic they are. So I would say Zach Wilson initially, just because he did show a little bit last week, and it's a good matchup against the Saints defense. But if he doesn't have Elijah Moore, I can't start him. So I guess I begrudgingly start Matt Ryan. But that's even they're just both so bad. I guess I would go with Matt Ryan, but hopefully Elijah Moore plays. In that case, I'd play Wilson.
All right,
If
Jake.
Elijah Moore plays, still Matt Ryan. It's the Saints defense, and it's Zach Wilson. And you want to talk about taking names off jerseys? Would you start Daniel Jones against the Saints defense? Because that's who Zach Wilson is. I said that when he came out of the draft. I said that he's Daniel Jones, and sure he could surprise us last week, but how many quarterbacks have we seen surprise us at times? Congratulations, Zach Wilson, on your one good game to make Jets not lose complete hope so far.
All right, let's switch gears to tight end here, who we're fading this week. For me, it's Kyle Pitts again. Just copy and paste everything I said last week. Now he is down to just 4 times this year that he's finished as tight end 1. That's not great because we're in week 14, and it's been since week 10 since he's done so. So it's just a difficult spot. And as Jake mentioned, it's not the greatest matchup in the world against Carolina secondary. Jake, who's a tight end 1 that you are concerned with this week? You're fading.
So it would be Kyle Pitts, but I'm still starting Kyle Pitts. It's tight end. And the thing with
again, you are, but it's tough, man.
Yeah. So I'll give one that I double-checked just now to see if he's still there, and I'm still shocked that he's been there because just like his teammate, enough with the Noah Fant. Holy crap, people.
I know.
Like seriously, Noah Fant is irrelevant in this offense, and he was barely relevant when there were 2 wide receivers, and then when they got Judy back, stop looking at the name Noah Fant. Stop. He is not a tight end 1.
Thank you for saying it out loud. I've been saying it for weeks now, so it's nice to hear someone else say it.
And now he's going to score twice against Detroit.
3 times. Andrew Erickson, your thoughts on tight end 1s this week? Who are you fading?
So Dalton Schultz, we saw his snaps decrease last week, and I think that had to do a little bit with the receivers all being back. Like he was up around the 90% routes run per dropback rate, and it kind of dipped, with Cooper, Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb back in the fold. And this is always the issue with tight ends. Like Schultz was super consistent in the beginning of the year when these guys were hurt and guys were missing. Like it was kind of the perfect storm. Like Jarwin went down, Michael Gallup went down, Amari Cooper's missing time. So Schultz has been like, okay, like I'm still like the number 2 guy like this entire time, and now he's starting to fall on the totem pole. So I think that he's not really should be viewed as like a locked and loaded tight end 1, where if you like a potential streamer as a better matchup, I think that you could probably pivot off of Adult Schultz.
All right, this makes me really happy because I picked for who should I start. Noah Fant or Tyler Conklin. What up? Let's go. Jake, Tyler Conklin or Noah Fant? Who would you rather start?
Tyler Conklin by my. I have Tyler Conklin inside of top 7 tight ends. I have Noah Fant over twice deep down. Noah Fant's at 16. So this is a gap in a freaking cavern before you even get to him.
All right, Andrew, what's the gap in cavern? I've got Conklin at 10, by the way, but I was just kind of curious
Why
how
do you
far
hate Conklin?
Andrew, where do you think between Conklin and Fant, who would you start this week?
No, I'm definitely going with Tyler Conklin over Noah Phantom, who's a ghost.
Yeah, look at you. Nice. Again, the dad jokes galore. Now, when you have kids, man, I can't imagine how strong your dad joke game is going to be.
I would start Ertz. I would start Marneau without. I would go back to Marneau without Darren
it's
Waller.
It's Moreau, not Morneau. It's not Justin Morneau who's away from the Twins.
I was still trying to this is why I have an energy drink in here, is because I'm still trying to
this is
that time of year. Did I really say Justin Morneau twice?
You did.
I was still going back to Moreau. So yeah, there's a lot of people.
Want to play Joe Mauer at quarterback this week?
I told you I was going to get the Evan Ingram type thing in here.
You did.
I basically did.
You did. You figured it out. All right, 78% of people agree with us, by the way. The experts, Tyler Conklin, 78% there.
What about Josh Willingham?
Andrew, real quick here. I know you had some thoughts on Gerald Everett, so share them with us, please.
Yeah, Gerald Everett had
negative points last week.
He had basically the worst game ever last week. It could not have gone right in any way, shape, or form for our guy Gerald Everett. But he should bounce back. I think that he should be able to bounce back. So if you missed out on the Conklin sweepstakes, who is the
if he doesn't play, he bounces back because at least he didn't get you negative points.
It's true. It's very true. But he's still seeing a lot of targets in the Seahawks passing game. He actually has the same target share over the last 4 weeks.
Back without playing.
DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, 19% target share. It's a good matchup against the Texans, and I mean, he can't do worse than last week, as Jake has alluded
to.
Legitimately, yeah, it's almost impossible. All right, I was almost not going to talk about it, but I'm glad I brought it up. All right, let's move on to our starts and sits of the week. I will go first. Russell Wilson is a start. I know everyone's been so concerned with Russell Wilson. It's a great matchup. Start Russell Wilson, and my must sit of the week is Emmanuel Sanders. All the reasons Jake already said. I've been saying it for weeks now. Stop chasing September, which is also, I think, ironically, another title of a movie starring Jake Seeley and Andrew Erickson on the Hallmark Channel, but that's more of a summer film. It's the follow-up, Chasing September. All right, how about you there, Jake? Who's your must start and sit for week 14?
If you've never seen, by the way, the meme of the collage of all the Hallmark movies where it's the same red and green white couple, go look, just look up. I'm serious. Go look Hallmark movie covers or something like that, and it's legitimately 16 of the same exact picture.
And every girl's named Charity, right? And every guy's
of course.
named,
yes, 100%.
Jackson.
My start we already covered, and it was a toss-up before. It's Jarvis Landry. Please start Jarvis Landry. I know there's concerns anytime he's been out there, and he hasn't even been consistent while healthy, but this is another smash spot for him, and it has nothing to do with the first matchup. What he did, it has to do with the matchup, period. The sit is the entire Giants wide receiver core, because I had been on for weeks saying, Sterling Shepard, just get on the field. Sterling Shepard, just get on the field because you're going to get 7,000 targets from Daniel Jones. Well, now it's Jake Fromm. And even if Shepard's out there, maybe I'll start Shepard. But Kenny Galladay's limping along, and he just doesn't fit this offense. Was one of the worst signings this offseason. You know that, Joe. We talked about it in the offseason. I said that before anything even happened. What is Kadarius Toney? Despite the fact Kadarius Toney is top 10 in yards per route run, if we could get him involved. But you're not starting Slate, and you're not just stay away from this mess, unfortunately.
All right. Erickson, your must starts and sits of the week.
I know that you hate him, Joe, but Tyler Conklin, got to start him this week. You know you hate
Love
him.
Tyler Conklin, I do.
And then my sit is Derek Carr. This is the time, and again, we talked about going to the fantasy playoffs. Derek Carr has been up and down. I don't think that he's the guy that's going to lead you there, and it's because the Chiefs' defense has been a lot better than they were during the beginning of the season. That's the thing that people see Chiefs shootout, Carr's gonna have to throw. It's no. This is not. We've been trying to follow this narrative all year long with the Chiefs, and it didn't work with the Cowboys. It hasn't worked. It didn't work with Teddy Bridgewater. Didn't work with Dak Prescott. So on the road, Derek Carr, I don't like the spot for him, and I think that he's going to let fantasy managers down if you play him.
All right, Thursday Night Football, Pittsburgh at Minnesota. Last question here of the show. Who has more PPR points in Thursday night's game, KJ Osborn or Tyler Conklin? Andrew Erickson, put your money where your mouth is.
Going Conklin.
All right, let's go. I'm going to go Conklin too, Jake.
Make it a trifecta right there, just because it's full PPR. That's why. That's really what it comes down to.
All right, there you have it. You can follow him on the Twitter machine and remember every single thing that he tweets, because every single tweet is a gem at All In Kid, and check out his work at The Athletic.
200,000 of them.
All 200,000 of them, exactly. Jake, my good friend, it is good to have you here and good to sit with you and talk a little football. Thanks for making the time for us, buddy.
And thank you.
All right, Andrew Erickson, I will see you again next week, as always. And I want to remind everybody, if you want to see more of us, head over to fantasypros.com/chat and get involved in our Discord, where you can talk to us about your teams. You can talk to other fantasy football lunatics just like yourself. And also make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fantasy Pros, youtube.com/fantasypros. Click that little notifications bell when you do for all the amazing content, the live streams, all the podcasts. It's how you listen to the show now. You watch the show at the same time, so you can see these two brothers here try to rebuild their cheese business, their artisan cheese business. That's your small business, guys, that the brothers are going to be running there. It's going to be beautiful. We'll see if I can shut it down next week on this news show that we got going on. All right, that'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Andrew Erickson and Jake Seeley, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.